see us come together, it's usually always has something to do with culture. It has something to do with culture, it has something to do with the arts, it has something to do with the creative space. And I've always been interested in film and television. Like, that's like the main thing I do.
They're also unconventional. We can be creative about who's considered a creative.
Yes, absolutely.
I understand that film has the power to teach people who we are. Our identities as Africans, our identities as Black people. Film has that power. Kwame Nkrumah understood that. That's why there were studios. He created studios. He was the first president to actually take people outside to learn about film.
So thank you for joining us today. First, we'd like to give thanks to the Creator for all things are not possible without. We'd also like to give thanks to our ancestors who toiled without compensation or compassion. And we'd also like to thank our ancestors whose shoulders we stand on, who help us to learn, build, and share in our collective liberation and sovereignty. So can you introduce yourself to our audience and viewers?
I'm Jocelyn. I'm originally from San Diego, California, but I'm here in Ghana for the summer. I'm a sociology PhD student at NYU. Yeah, happy to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Taylor Dews. I'm from Virginia, in the States, from the South. You already know. Two up, two down. I'm also a upcoming third year PhD student at NYU studying cultural anthropology as well as film. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and talk about what I'm doing here and the work that I'm doing with Bintuma, with the Blackstar International Film Festival, and in general my research on Black international film festivals that are directed and curated by Black women.
Hello, my name is Bintuma Arthur. I am the director of the Blackstar International Film Festival. I'm also a singer, and I run an entertainment PR company called the Premier 369. It's a pleasure to be here, to be connected with all the minds on this table. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
So the first question I have is for you, Taylor. What inspired you to come and visit Ghana and explore stories through film?
Thank you for that question. So the first time I came to Ghana was in 2019, which just so happened to be the year of return. But what brought me here was a study abroad trip through my school. At the time, I was an undergrad at Spelman College in Atlanta, a historically Black college, the #1 HBCU. You know, we got to put that in there. And so I came through like academic. I was studying abroad at the University of Ghana, where I was taking courses and exploring Ghana, and of course through the lens of like the transatlantic slave trade and you know, that backdrop of like the year of return, which was like this idea of coming home, which is very interesting to me, being the descendant of slaves, and coming, kind of my first time being in West Africa, being under the backdrop of taking these courses and learning about this history and how it, the implications of it to me, my community, in my life, and I'd say that trip in particular kind of framed my interests, my academic interests, my personal interests, and Ghana has always been some place that I knew I would return to eventually. So after that trip, I came back. It was a crazy summer, y'all. Like, I left school, went to Ghana, and then right after went to Johns Hopkins, where I did like a research program. And all of my research questions kind of were opened up from that trip, that study abroad trip to Ghana. And that's actually how I came upon film as a site of cultural encounter. I think that as Black people, like across the diaspora, we're very audio-visual people. And one of my main questions is how can we relate to one another in our stories after the rupture that was the Middle Passage? Like, how do we come together. Earlier, y'all were talking about this festival in Toronto, this kind of like site of coming together. When I see us come together, it's usually always has something to do with culture. It has something to do with culture. It has something to do with the arts. It has something to do with the creative space. And I've always been interested in film and television. Like that's like the main thing I do is watch TV. And that's the main way that I understand. I've been able to understand myself, my own subject position, and also the subject positions of other Black people. When we can't travel, when we can't move, when there aren't the resources or the accessibility to move physically, like how can we move our thoughts and our experiences, if not through film? And so that is how I came to film as like a site through which we might be able to share our cultures. Because I don't know, y'all be seeing like diaspora wars and all that. And it's like, okay, I mean, clearly we're not gonna all get along because I feel like, let's say like the Pan-African vision, it's a very tall order.
Yeah.
I mean, as Black people, we're very different. And I think that we're the only people like on earth who are expected to all get along because we're Black. And even despite us being Black, like we all have our cultural differences, our regional differences, our different languages. And so when it comes to like, okay, how can we come together? I think that a language that we can all understand, a dialect that we all know is what? Music, film, art, food. And so using those platforms or those mediums as a way to like share ourselves with one another and the hope that maybe we'll find what our similarities are and then hopefully also appreciate our differences. And so eventually I came to Black International Film Festivals as a site through which kind of like literally the site through which we could bring all of our visual stories together and sit there and engage with them in a platform where we can also discuss what we've seen, meet one another like physically, but also meet one another through like this audiovisual medium. And specifically, I was interested in how Black women were curating these spaces. Because I'm in Atlanta, like my first project at Spelman was on the Bronzelands Film Festival. Which is also led by a Black woman and a Spelman alum. And that was like my first kind of time seeing like, okay, these festivals have a different purpose and a different reason and a different impact than these like more mainstream large film festivals that tend to be elitist spaces and et cetera, et cetera. And Black women are doing something that is different. Like they're creating home spaces through like in like this public like kind of like public platform of like an international film festival. And so how through this space could we relate to one another? And so that's what I've been doing here in Accra. That's what brought me back. So yeah.
Amazing. So my next question is for you, Jocelyn. Can you share your most memorable moment that stood out to you during your time in Ghana?
Yeah, so this is actually my second time in Ghana. The first time I came was this past January of this year, and I came as like a graduate student assistant, kind of like chaperoning an undergraduate group through NYU. And so I was super excited to come here. A little bit background about me. My dad is from Nigeria. And yeah, so my dad is from Nigeria, and growing up, for various reasons, like that was, being Nigerian was kind of like like withheld from me a bit, like we didn't really connect too much with like family, especially family here on the continent. My dad named a number of reasons that I'm not playing with. So like spiritual reasons.
Yeah.
And so it was something that was like always like at the back of my head. Unfortunately, my dad is no longer with us, and I never got the chance to come to West Africa. I will make my way to Nigeria at some point, strategically. But so when I got the opportunity to come this past January on like a school trip, for me it was very life-changing, very emotional. I was able to kind of like, in some way, connect with being in West Africa. And so I was here for a week, actually staying here at the Movenpick. Shout out to Movenpick. And like got to do like all of the like touristy things that I got to see the museums, went to the market, and not necessarily a touristy thing, but still a very important like historical site to visit, Thelmina Castle. And we also did like a community service project with an organization here. And so it was like a very life-changing trip. And it was a week, and I knew a week wasn't long enough. And I just wanted to figure out how to come back. And so that kind of is how like my research kind of came about. I kind of learned, Taylor had told me about like the year of return and folks kind of repatriating. I had learned about like the ways in which Ghana specifically is a site of like so integral to like the Pan-African vision. I had also previously TA'd in a course on the Black Atlantic. And so like learning about all of these things and putting it together, I was like, I have to go back and reflecting on my own experience, like connecting in a way that I couldn't really articulate, still can't. I was curious about why, specifically, I'm playing with the language, like diasporic Americans are moving here from America. And so there's a number of reasons, and that's essentially what my research is on, or this particular project. A number of reasons, but many have shared this like longing to return to like an ancestral homeland. And so just trying to explore that. And so I'll come back to the question, sorry. in getting to like pursue this project, I had the luxury of speaking to various diasporans who occupy various spaces. Some are academics, some are business owners. But also because I'm so close with Taylor and now so close with Bentuma, I've gotten a chance to also like get the perspective of like local Ghanaians. And I mentioned I'm not in the film space, but I'm like, now I feel like it's something.
I was doing such cool things.
Yeah, like we're doing such cool things, such impactful things. Like translating like the experiences that Taylor was referring to into like visuals that can be shared, and I think that's especially important. So it's really, really difficult for me to choose one specific like experience, but I will kind of put it under the umbrella of like, on one hand, my interviews, getting to talk to folks who have shared very vulnerably like their experience moving here and the challenges that they face, and then on the other, getting to share space with Bentuma at the Visa House, like a group of creatives working at a house, like
Creating a whole entire festival
from
a house.
And it just brings me to home place.
Like under one roof?
Almost definitely.
It seems like it. They're working all the time. So, and like, we watch movies together. We put them on to show like our favorite shows, and they've shared like their favorite Nollywood movies. And so we go to karaoke on Tuesdays. So I would say like cumulatively, all of these experiences have been very impactful.
Thank you for sharing. And now for you, Bentuma, if you could introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your work.
Yes. So my name is Bentuma. I already introduced myself. But yes, I direct the Blackstar International Film Festival, which is a platform that is supposed to empower emerging filmmakers. That's what it was intended to be. But now it's extensively become a platform that is empowering creatives in general. It started because, in the scheme of things, I understand that film has the power to teach people who we are, our identities as Africans, our identities as Black people. Film has that power. Kwame Nkrumah understood that. That's why there were studios. He created studios. He was the first president to actually take people outside to learn about film, because then he understood that we kind of lost that. We kind of lost all the cinemas that the country had, the film going culture, the cinema going culture, all got lost. Now, there are no spaces for filmmakers, there are no spaces for creatives. How then do we create a community for people who are interested in that? people want to be doctors, scientists, lawyers. Nobody wants to be a filmmaker. Nobody wants to be a creative. Why? Because then there's no space. There are no opportunities, seemingly. So the Blackstar International Film Festival started to provide a community for people who want the opportunity to, go into the creative spaces and the film space especially. So our idea was, okay, because there are so many people who have the platform, how do we give them global standard education and training? So we connect with different individuals who are doing exceptionally well in the field. And then we connect with some institutions. We've connected with some film schools to do some master classes, workshops for people here. And we realized that it's not only for Ghanaians, but even on the continent, on West Africa, in West Africa, when you take Togo, they also lack resources like that. So then the festival extensively became a platform for other West African countries to join in. And for the past 5 years, we've been at this and providing volunteers, because we run on volunteers. It's volunteers that manage the entire festival. I am a volunteer on the festival, and we work with over 40 volunteers every year to make the festival happen. The hope is that the festival will grow, will get funding, will get resources to be able to employ these volunteers, because my greatest fear is that we'll lose them to places they have no interest or passion in.
Yeah.
And that's a very scary thing to do. If so many people in a country are in things that don't fulfill them, we are going to be, in the greatest doom.
So would you say that's a problem in Ghana that
It is
a lot of people face?
It is a huge problem. There's a huge problem. People we only have the National Film Television Institute, which is the NAFT, that has churned out a lot of filmmakers and creators. And now there are just about 2 more that are also trying to be on the level of NAFT. But these filmmakers come out and there are no opportunities, so then they head out into the corporate world. Then they become, they end up in advertising agencies or end up doing something that is not what they are passionate about. So it's a huge problem. And I always say that when you take STEM, right, science, math, and all, there are so many institutions and organizations that are championing those on the continent. But there are very limited institutions that are championing the cause of creative artists. And I'm just happy to know the work you guys are doing, that you are adding to it. It's really exciting to know that, and I'm really glad I connected with you, because it's just impressive. And if we are able to collaborate and, provide that platform, we would become a force to reckon with. And that is really the hope, that the festival, seeks to inspire so many creatives, so many filmmakers to not give up on their vision, and hopefully provide a platform where either they can be employed by the festival, or the festival can provide opportunities for their work to be seen. Through the festival, some films have been on Netflix. We've been able to connect with some distribution companies that have put some films that submit to the festival on Netflix. Some have even gotten some distribution and marketing opportunities through the festival. It's not enough, but it's not enough because we don't have the resources. And we are hoping that maybe through this interview, you don't know, maybe somebody will reach out to the festival. But yes, that's really what we are trying to do. And the scary part is that if in the next year or 2, if we are not able to see what's happening, we may have to let go of the festival. And I don't think I want to do that, because it's very sad to even think about it. So that's what we are doing. That's what we are trying to do. And this year we are on again. This year, 17th to the 22nd of September, we are gathering creatives, we are gathering filmmakers, and trying to make an impact on the industry.
Well, thank you for all the work.
Thank you for all the work you do.
So before we close, is there any sharing thoughts or calls to actions you want to tell the viewers before we close?
Yeah. For the
Basically, do you have anything you want people to take away from this interview? Like, do you want them to be like, we need more creatives. So all those creatives out there, like,
Yeah.
be passionate about your work.
Yeah.
Fall in your work. Come reach us. Or like, do you have any like things you want to impart on our audience?
Yes, definitely. So if you're watching this interview, if you're a filmmaker, if you're creative, keep going at it. If you're on this continent, I know it doesn't seem, it seems like the opportunities are blurry and you don't know what to do, but hey, there are people doing amazing things. You just need to connect with them. Like the festival, like what your platform is doing, just connect with people. We are hoping that we can also help you advance your vision or your vision and what it is you want to achieve in this space. So connect with the festival, just Blackstar International Film Festival on all platforms, and let's get working.
Do you guys have anything to say for the creatives in the diaspora?
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Our future as Black people lies in the hands of creatives. I really do believe that. Yeah, so like Ventuma said, keep at what you're doing and be in community with other creatives. Because even when there are no resources, by virtue of being in community with one another, we can make, I don't know if we can curse here. Probably not, huh? we can make something shake,
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Do you have anything else in your
I guess to kind of like chime in on the like creatives, I think there are also unconventional, we can be creative about who's considered a creative.
Yes, absolutely.
I myself, I feel like if you look at me on paper, I might be like, this is an academic. But in being in community, something that Black people, we do, we are always in community. We are inherently creative. Making impact with one another. Like, even if you aren't someone who's like a visual artist or a musician, like that doesn't mean you're counted out. There's still ways for you to be connected and in community, and still ways for you to creatively contribute. So,
I always think that creativity is always more of an idea that no one else is thinking that you're able to actualize.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter which field you're in, science, mechanical, creative, you can be in corporate. As long as you bring in an idea that no one's thinking of and it's an improvement in helping other people, you're creative.
Absolutely.
And what do you guys have to say to the people who believe that Ghana is scary? Or is it scary? Because there's a lot of that in the West. Oh, Africa? No, Africa.
Don't get me started, Emmanuel. Don't get me started. I'm about to get my soapbox, Emmanuel. We was right on about to close. I was like, that is what Oh, no. You go ahead, Terry.
Quick one.
You go ahead. I think that we really need to tackle our ignorance about one another, especially. Well, I mean, I can't say too much about white people. I don't really be, y'all stay over there. But in terms of the diaspora and in terms of Black folks, I think we need to be more open-minded. We need to recognize when we don't know something. We need to be able to identify when something has been fed to us. These ignorant thoughts and notions have been fed to us. I mean, it ties in again to like being able to share ourselves with one another, being vulnerable with one another, because the things that we assume about Africa, the African continent, about West Africa, about Ghana, are informed by that ignorance. And I mean, we can identify who has instilled those things in us. And so I think, and that's the reason why I'm so passionate about film and about art and about the creative space. Because when I said, like, I think that our futures are in the hands of creatives, what I mean by that is one of the main ways that we can share ourselves with one another is by telling our stories, whether that's through music, whether that's through film, whether that's through visual art, whether that's through food. Because like I said before, we're more similar than we are different. And I think oftentimes too, there's an assumption that the West, everything is all peachy, and it's not. And many of the challenges that Black people face here on the continent, Black people are also facing across the diaspora, even in the belly of the beast that is the United States, the U.S. empire. We are still experiencing oppression. We are still we're still under the grip of the U.S. empire, and so therefore we can relate to the experiences of those that people are having here on the continent as well. And so, I mean, I could go on and on, but I think that we need to remain open-minded and open our hearts to understanding one another as Black people, no matter where we find ourselves.
Yes.
Well, thank you. We'd like to close as we begin by giving thanks to the Creator for all things are not possible without. We'd also like to give thanks to our ancestors who toiled without compensation and compassion. And we'd also like to give thanks to our elders whose shoulders we stand on to share, build, and learn our collective sovereignty and liberation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. This is